What's up guys, I'm randomfrankp. Today we are going to be reviewing the highly anticipated Razer Cynosa Pro keyboard. This is their newer released model, which also goes alongside of the Razer Cynosa Chroma keyboard. The only difference between these two models being that one has that RGB underlighting with the Cynosa Pro, and the regular Cynosa does not. So today in this video, we're gonna be checking out both the models, primarily focusing on the Cynosa Pro to give you guys a better idea of what they're about, going over the pros and cons, talking about the switches, the lighting, all that good stuff in this review. So first off, the keyboard looks very similar to past Razer keyboards. No real design changes here. It's their standard layout here. Unfortunately, no macro switches this time around on the left side, but the body itself is primarily plastic, all covered in a matte black finish. Then flipping the keyboard over, on the sides and on the bottom, you'll see integrated a subtle RGB light strip, which is very similar to the light strip they use on their RGB Firefly mouse pad. And what this is gonna do in the Cynosa Pro model is just add a little bit of extra, flair and pop to your keyboard at nighttime, giving it some nice subtle underglow. It's a nice little touch. But again, this is only in the Cynosa Pro model. It's gonna retail for $80 versus the regular Cynosa Chroma keyboard without that underglow for $60. Then also on the backside, you have 2 feet up top. Gonna elevate its backside when you're typing or gaming. And there's actually 2 levels of feet integrated here for different levels of height adjustment. Then before we move on, the Cynosa does have 8-key rollover with anti-ghosting. And we now have a water or a spill resistance built into the keyboard with how it's overall constructed. So if you spill some water or something on it, it's really not going to damage it, which is always good. Now we're gonna move on to the switches. And right now I have to admit, when I did my unboxing and first look last week, I incorrectly labeled this keyboard as mecha membranes because when I first did the unboxing, I was just checking it out. I thought that's what it was. This is not a mecha membrane keyboard, nor is it a mechanical keyboard. Here in the Cynosa Chroma keyboards, we have membrane switches. I know it's not what you wanted to hear, but when you pop off the keycap, you will see what I'm talking about. So I do apologize if I got your hopes up in that unboxing video, but no, these are not mecha membrane. They are going old school here with those soft and mushy rubber dome switches. Now, one of the things I always point out when I'm doing my keyboard reviews is the fact that the switches are going to matter probably to like 80% of the people out there. But for those 20% who are not really experienced with keyboards or who haven't used a mechanical keyboard in the past, rubber dome isn't going to be a big deal to them. It's really not going to be a deal breaker if they've always used budget keyboards in the past or they've only ever used rubber dome switches. Then it's not going to be a big deal to that probably favorable 20% that I just randomly labeled, just judging from my past experience with reviews and audience feedback and stuff like that. So if you're out there, obviously, and you've been familiar with keyboards or you're a keyboard enthusiast, you're not gonna be a fan of rubber dome switches. That's just a fact. But like I said, if you're inexperienced, if you've used budget keyboards in the past, then it's not gonna be that big of a deal. For me, I'm not a fan, but that's just me. So I'll do a sound test now so you could hear how these rubber dome switches sound versus also a regular mechanical keyboard so you could hear how those sound. So quite the difference in terms of sound, and yes, when you are typing or gaming, it is much more of a soft and mushy experience when you're actually registering the key. It's more of like a subtle bump versus a nice tactile and clicky bump like you're probably used to for mechanical switches. I know not all mechanical switches are like that, but just kind of giving you a general sense out there of the main difference here. It's just much more of a soft actuation point when you're typing or gaming. Now we're gonna talk about the lighting, and again, popping one of the keycaps off, you'll see how the lighting is kind of constructed here in the Cynosa Pro. Underneath all the keys is this kind of see-through plastic base that does allow for a favorable amount of light leak to come through, which is going to add to the keyboard's pop level overall. And you can see embedded right in the middle of the tube that they use here for the switches is that light. Now once you plug it in, you get Razer Synapse booted up. You can go in and obviously change up the lighting effects. Wave is the very popular and famous, RGB wave. It's gonna give you some cool effects. Spectrum cycling is pretty standard. It just brings those colors that it's possible of in and out. Breathing then is gonna pulse those colors in and out as it fades to black in between the color switches. Starlight's always nice. It kind of like twinkles colors throughout in certain random keys and stuff like that. You can pick your colors, you can pick the speed, have it be random, anything like that. Then you have fire, which is going to kind of make a fiery effect with different shades of yellow, red, and orange and stuff like that. Then you have reactive, which is going to pulse the key you're actually pressing. Kind of gives like a nice light trail and stuff like that. I've always liked this one. Then next is ripple, which once you press down on a key will send like a ripple wave of lights outward. This has always been a favorite one of mine, but what's odd is with this model, it feels like that ripple coming out is very laggy and slow. I don't know why or if that's intentional. I'm not a big fan of it though. It kind of takes away from it. I'd rather it be much more smooth. And then you have static. Obviously you can pick one static color. Now over the past few years, the Razer Synapse software has gotten much better and improved. It's much more user-friendly now. And with the Synapse program, you can go in, make your own custom lighting effects with layers and stuff like that. And like I said, now with the Cynosa Pro model, you have that underglow with the sides and on the front, which you can go in and sort of change up the zones if you want to that. So if you want your keyboard to be like shining blue up top and have a white underglow on the bottom, you can obviously. Or have the different zones on the bottom be different colors. They give you the possibilities and stuff, which is always good. And one of the things I do want to bring up is the amount of lighting effects and just the overall lighting possibilities you get with the Cynosa and the Cynosa Pro are one of the best out there for its price range. A lot of times you see keyboards at around this price, they'll claim it's RGB, but it'll be heavily restricted where either certain layers or like certain character layers will come up. So it's like 3-zone lighting, or each row can only be a certain amount of color. So in terms of RGB lighting, Razer here's got it locked down. And then also with the Synapse software, like we've seen in the past, you can go in and pretty much reprogram all the keys on the fly with their macro recording. So wrapping everything up in total for $60, honestly, it's not that bad. And that's gonna be a pretty solid sweet spot for people out there who are on a budget and obviously wanna stick to their whole Razer ecosystem and stuff like that. And when you think about the other competition out there from Razer especially, they had the Ornata last year, which was $100. Now it's more on sale. But for $60 for the regular Cynosa version versus the, $80 for the Cynosa Pro, this is gonna be on a lot of people's wish list, believe it or not, even though it is technically a membrane or like a rubber dome keyboard. Now, some things I don't like about it, honestly, I wish there were some macro keys. We saw it last year when Corsair put out their own K55. That was also a $50 keyboard with macros that was also rubber dome. So some macros would have been nice. I feel like macros are on most Razer keyboards as it is. Another thing that was kind of odd was that one lighting effect. I talked about it when I showed off the effects themselves, but ripple just seems very laggy. I don't know if that's intentional or not. It really shouldn't be, because having it be more fluid and smooth like most of the other animations would have made it look just that much better. And the third con overall is going to be the fact that this is a rubber dome keyboard. Like, it just kind of confuses me considering the Ornata did have those mecha membrane switches. I feel like if you could have put that into this, it would have been a much better deal and a value in the end. Especially if you could have combined the Cynosa and the Cynosa Pro, still include some underlighting on here and maybe charge $10 extra instead of having two different models. It's just kind of confusing to me. So in the end, those are my three cons. But I mean, in the end, it's still a pretty good value keyboard for $60. There is not another keyboard at this price range that does have the nice 16.8 million color RGB lighting effects with that rainbow wave, so it's gonna look nice. You get that slight water resistance and stuff. So for, again, Razer lovers who wanna stick to that Razer ecosystem, this is gonna be a pretty hot buy, I can imagine, for the holidays. And overall, it's not a bad keyboard for the price. Just rubber dome still kind of confusing me in 2017, considering the leaps that Razer's made in the past with upgrading their switches. So if you want to check it out and you're interested in it, I'll put a link for it in the description down below. And if you like the review, guys, give it a thumbs up to show your support. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at randomfrankp. Lastly, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We have a ton of holiday videos coming up. You're not going to want to miss out on that. Well, I'm Random Frank P. Hope you enjoyed. Have a good day.